Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to our sixth One South Asia conversation. This is our bi-monthly series where we discuss and debate topics of regional cooperation and integration in South Asia. Today, we're going to be focusing on the issue of toxic air in the region, because this is an urgent and pressing issue, and it has transboundary impacts. South Asia is at the epicenter of the ambient air pollution crisis. According to the latest World Air Quality Report, 37 of the top 40 most polluted cities in the world are in South Asia. Air pollution in the region is a health hazard, and it represents the third highest risk for premature death as compared to the ninth highest cause in Western Europe. Overall, it contributes to around 11% of all deaths. And this also has huge economic consequences. The total welfare loss due to the exposure to air pollution are estimated at 7.4% of the region's GDP. And air pollution is not a localized phenomenon. It is multi-sectoral, and its effects spread to places far away from the source. Therefore, it requires responses at the local, the national, and the regional levels. The urgency of the response has been spotlighted during the COVID-19 pandemic, where research indicates that air pollution predisposes people to the virus and increases their vulnerability, therefore worsening impact. Today's One South Asia conversation will focus on ways regional cooperation can help mitigate toxic air pollution and also support the region's recovery in greener, cleaner, and more connected ways. This conversation builds our previous World Bank Springs meeting event on air quality management in South Asia, held in April, and on our regional workshop organized by the South Asia Cooperative Environment Program, SACEP, earlier in March 2021. Both discussions underpinned a shared South Asia Clean Air 2030 vision with coordinated local, national, and regional efforts. The Clean Air Vision proposed by the World Bank lays out a 10-year roadmap for action, knowledge sharing, and regional collaborations to achieve WHO interim targets for cleaner air quality and to improve transboundary air quality management in the region. Today's conversation is also part of our collaboration with 4 other multilateral development banks, with whom we are bringing out a joint publication to promote regional cooperation in South Asia and the Indo-Pacific. Our partners are the Asian Development Bank, the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, and the Islamic Development Bank. This joint MDB publication reaffirms our shared commitment to responding to the pandemic through regional approaches. The World Bank is contributing a chapter on ambient air pollution and public health in South Asia, and we hope today's conversation will provide inputs and insights for this work. This chapter, authored by our colleague Muthukumar Mani, a lead economist, is based on the forthcoming World Bank report on air pollution, which has been supported by the UK's Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office. And our colleague Mani is our guest blogger for this event. You can reach him on our World Bank Live page. My name is Cecile Fruman. I'm the Director for Regional Integration and Engagement in South Asia at the World Bank. And I would now like to introduce our distinguished panelists for today. We have a great lineup, and I'm sure we're going to have a fantastic conversation. We are joined by Mr. Naresh Pal Gangwar, Joint Secretary, Ministry of Environment, Forests and Climate Change in India. He is also accompanied by his colleague, Mr. Sundeep Singh, a director in the Singh Ministry. Our second panelist is Mr. Zahid Hussain, Secretary, Environment Protection Department, Punjab, Pakistan. We then have Mr. Bjarne Pedersen, Executive Director, Clean Air Asia. And last but not least, Ms. Bidya Banmali Pradhan, who's the head of the Air Pollution Solutions Program at ICIMOD. Welcome to all of you, and thank you so much for joining us. Before we launch into the conversation, let me remind our audience that you can post questions on our World Bank Live page, and also to draw your attention to the fact that we have posted a poll on the page. And if you have not yet joined the poll, please let us know your views on what South Asian countries could do to prioritize and to tackle air pollution. We will share the results of the poll at the end of this session. So let me now start by turning to Mr. Zahid Hussain. Um, let's focus on Pakistan, which has approved a national electric vehicle policy and also announced a renewable energy policy. Can you tell us a little bit about how these are being implemented at the national and the provincial levels? And what impact do you see these innovative policies having on improved air quality? Over to you, Mr. Hussain. If you can unmute yourself, Mr. Hussain.
I have unmuted myself. Am I audible now?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay. As you have already informed the participants and the audience, Pakistan has approved its electric vehicle policy, and all the provinces are following the suit. Here is a centralized system of policy making, with and federal government of Pakistan has done its part. Now it's for the provinces to play their role and finalize those policy parameters which have been envisioned by government of Pakistan. I will talk only of Punjab province because that's where I can say something with certainty, with the degree of certitude and conviction. In Punjab, we are currently running a World Bank assisted program called Punjab Green Development Program. That is a $273 million program having 8 DLIs and DLRs. One of them particularly pertains to transport sector. In Punjab, Pakistan, and particularly in Lahore, the capital of the province, there is an issue of small scale vehicles, commuting vehicles flying for transportation of passengers, one passenger, two passenger, three passenger, four passenger vehicles, locally called as rickshaws, and there is a new breed which is called motorcycle rickshaws. According to the policy formulated by Government of Pakistan and being followed by Punjab province, we in the first phase of our action plan would be focusing on the replacement of those vehicles which are not using quality fuels, which are generating pollution, air pollution, smoke in shape of smoke, and noise pollution in shape of their vehicular sounds. A sizable chunk of funds has been allocated for that purpose, and Transport Department in Government of the Punjab is working on that. Basic data has been collected, and we are working on now other advanced levels. And day is not far when we will be starting practically replacing those vehicles, taking off those vehicles from the roads, taking them off the roads, and replacing them with better quality vehicles in the first phase, and ultimately replacing them with electric rickshaws, electrically powered uh, passenger transportation vehicles. Punjab Green Development Program, I have figures with me. Currently, we have allocated 25 million rupees, sorry, 25 million US dollars for, for betterment in transport sector. And that will contribute to Government of Pakistan's electric vehicle policy. And that, that chunk of funds, that money will be utilized for replacing vehicles in a phased manner.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Mr. Hussain. I'm going to turn now to Bidya. So Bidya, you've been working in the Hindu Kush Himalayan region on air quality management for quite some time, and the focus has been on developing cost-effective solutions to improve air quality throughout the region. Can you tell us what have been the key challenges to air quality management in the mountainous region and what solutions in particular have worked?
Thank you, Cecile. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Yes, talking about challenge, there are different kind of challenges related to air quality in HKH region, which is a short form of Hindu Kush Himalayan. Rising temperature, emissions, and of course, atmospheric changes. And let me start with the HKH assessment report. Hopefully, like many of you must have gone through it, which was released in 2019. It was the first ever assessment of climate change impacts on the HKH. And in that report, one of the key finding is like 1.5 degree is too hot for the Hindu Kush Himalayan region. This is because of the elevation dependent warming, the phenomena, which means that warming is amplified with elevation. So this means that even limiting warming to 1.5 degree agreed on the Paris Climate Agreement will result at least 2 degrees increase in the mountains. And if current emission trends persist, temperature even might go up to 5 degrees in the mountains. So in 1 degree Celsius, it's mentioned like 1/3 of the glaciers will disappear by the end of this century. And the current emission scenario, we will lose 2/3 of our glaciers volume. So this might result in a lot of catastrophe, like even climate migration due to extreme weather events like flooding and droughts, which we have been already experienced to some extent. And as Cecile mentioned, that you are aware that major of these cities in the HKH region are almost 5 to 10 times higher than the WHO guidelines. So, you know, the complexity of the mountain topography itself poses multiple kind of challenges, from atmospheric system, the airflow, and also in establishing monitoring station. And this challenge results in one another, like the scarcity in air quality data in the region. And though there has been progress on this front, but still, Afghanistan, Myanmar, and even, I think, correct me, Secretary Zahid Hussain, that even Pakistan still do not have regular air quality monitoring stations. And this gap in monitoring data, emission inventory, or even source apportionment data set, which is very important for evidence-based policymaking and strategies, is lacking. The other thing is the transboundary nature of air pollution, transversing from provincial and national borders, brings with a set of its own challenges related to governance and policies. And moreover, air quality related competencies, which we don't have much in South Asia, like human resources are inadequate, as well as financial resources. And finally, the public awareness is not adequate. The perception of air quality issues needs to be understood better if we are to respond with effective solutions and strategies. For example, that we did one questionnaire survey, and the majority of communities across the region equate only smoke as air pollution. In spite of this perception, though, most remain hesitant to accept that health implication of biomass-based cooking, especially on women and children. So there's a lot of challenges, and of course, with these challenges, there's no one fit solutions for all. And you must have all read the science-based solution report launched by UN Environment, Climate and Clean Air Coalition, had identified 25 clean measures that can bring about numerous benefits for public health, economy, and also to the climate. And one measure that ICIMOD has successfully demonstrated in transition to the cleaner zigzag brick production technology in Nepal and Pakistan, which has even showed a lot of improvement in the air quality. And the other sector is the residential sector, which accounts for more than 40% of the emissions. And now, solar has gained quite a traction in Nepal, Bhutan, and even in Afghanistan, especially replacing the kerosene lamps. And government is trying to respond with the alternatives to biomass-based cooking, as improved biomass cook stove did not gain much prominence. Now with the increased access for more affordable electricity in our region, most have been transitioned to electric cooking. And, this was clearly seen in, in reduction of household air pollution. And I think maybe Sundeep will be better able to mention this. In the recently launched report on the global state of air pollution, they have clearly mentioned that Ujala Yojana, where they have been distributing LPG to the rural household below the poverty line in India, has really, considerably progress in reducing the household air pollution. And the other thing is, we know that lockdown brought rapid improvement in the air quality in many cities around the world. And though these changes have been only temporary, but it has also a reminder of what it is possible and have inspired renewed demands for cleaner air, which can be achieved through, various solutions. So I stop here. And yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Bidya. So Bjarne, we're going to zoom out a little bit because your work spans across Asia and you've been doing this for many, many years. So what do you see as some of the broader challenges and solutions for this particular region, South Asia?
Thank you, Cecile, and good morning, good afternoon to everybody out there. Broader challenges and solutions across the region, it is a little bit of a difficult one, as Bidya said. There's no one size fits all when it comes to air pollution, though there is a common themes in terms of the challenges we face. I like to have a starting point with air pollution where we come from point of view that we mostly have solutions, or the solutions are in the pipeline. What we really have is a complex implementation challenge. And that is a positive. And I think a good starting point for discussing how we mitigate air pollution. If I look at some of the broader challenges we're seeing across the region, commonly it's around often lack of capacity in science-based air quality management. Air quality management sounds very simple, but it's an incredible complex task. There's often a lack of finance, both to get an air quality management, science-based air quality management system in place, but also implement the control measures needed. We often see unclarity in responsibility between cities and national governments across the region. It means that often air quality mitigation measures tends to fall between the gaps of the area of influence of national governments, regional entities, or indeed cities that often are on the forefront of the fight against air pollution. As the former participant said, air pollution transcends administrative borders and so often requires cooperation on a level that other issues does not, which is often a challenge, back to the lack of capacity. I sometimes refer to how China was back in 2013 when they had the air Acropolis, and there were quite a brutal assessment within China of what China needed and what the challenges was, and an understanding of what was key to long-term air quality improvement. Back then, it was lack of monetary data, incomplete data, lack of data acquisition, not necessarily for monitoring network, but data in general, data acquisition and information, emission inventories, incomplete data. As I mentioned, lack of finance, technical guidelines, capacity building, interdepartmental cooperation, often a challenge, not only in China, but across Southeast Asia. And we see also new challenges emerging in countries that are on the forefront of fighting air pollution, where they have so to say, and not enough pick low-hanging fruits, and now need to deal with secondary pollutants, including ozone, which means that suddenly you have to go into infrastructure reform, which is much more difficult than picking the low-hanging fruit. This is, for me, the main challenges. If I look at some of the main solutions, I'll start with a soft one, which is creating a common narrative around health, climate, and air, co-benefits and co-control. There is nothing as galvanized public support that can help move the air quality agenda forward. And indeed, that was what we saw in the air Acropolis in China back in 2015. That was really a galvanized public support. So a common narrative about the combined issues of health, climate, and air, and the need for the co-benefits of addressing the issues and the need for the co-control. Second part of solution lies in air pollution transcends, as I mentioned, administrative borders. Following that challenge, then solutions must also transcend administrative borders. And I think a recognition of that often brings forward change. And we'll talk, I guess, later a little bit more about good examples and good practices. Solutions in sort of a very traditional way, it's actually science-based air quality management. Use the data, get the data acquisition, use the data to understand the sources, control the sources, key sources, we all know them: coal, biomass, high polluting industries, vehicles, cooking, energy. We also know the solutions, the appropriate means from our experience across Asia, often targets standards, legislation, compliance, and enforcement. Often overlooked is economic incentives. We look at the countries that has made good progress in terms of dealing with air pollution and co-control issues. It's really about providing economic incentives and finance to implement their solutions. And I'm big on the last one, which is what Clean Air Asia often do, is capacity building and technical assistance. We can't expect administrative units, governments or others, to implement a complex, to address a complex problem like air pollution without providing them with the capacity to do so. And clean air action planning, air quality monitoring, communication, etc., whatever area, it's important to build capacity. And then finally, there is an experience from our side is that it's important when we talk with cities, regional governments, and national governments to make clear on the need to focus on what is within their sphere of influence and collaborate on the rest, which is where we come into the airshed debate. And I will stop there.
Great, thank you so much, Bjarne. So I understand that Joint Secretary Gangwar has been called to Parliament. So Mr. Sundeep Singh has kindly agreed to step in for him. So I'll turn to you, Sundeep. Thank you very much for stepping in on short notice. So we're going to turn now to India, which, as we know, is home to some of the most polluted cities across the globe, and where there are very high concentrations of air pollutants. But there has been some good news, and the air quality has shown some improvements over the past couple of years. And so I'd like you to tell us some of the steps that India has taken, in particular, talk about the National Action Clean Air Program, some of the fiscal incentives that you've put in place. So what's working well, and what are the challenges that you see on your end? Thank you.
Thank you, Celeste. Just to apply on behalf of my Joint Secretary, he could not make it. I will be just try to put in something since we work in a team, so we are aware about what exactly we are doing. And at the outset, let me thank you for giving us opportunity to come out and share our experience, what we are doing with NCAP, and which will definitely help others also to know the challenges we are facing and how we are dealing with it. Yes, rightly said, on various reports which comes out, we find many of our cities in most polluted ranking. But to just give you a perspective of our entire area, what we have, only 2 to 3% is what cities are. The rest of the area in our country does not reflect the same air quality what generally it is perceived. So just to start with this, one misnomer, like generally the perception lies that if you have a bad cities, you have, yes, we have concern in rural areas also because of bio-based fuels. But then, yes, cities has been on our target because it is high densely populated area and exposure, health aspect. These are the things which we need to look into. Now, going by that, what we did was under NCAP, we identified the cities which were attaining the national ambient air quality for 5 consecutive years. It was not 1 or 2. We took it on an annual basis, 5 consecutive years if they are not meeting with the national standard. And that too, we found that most of the parameters of pollutants which were not is more concentrated on particulate matter. So we fix up a target. It may be ambitious the way we expected and the way development, economical development is going on presently. But then our target is by in 4-year time, we will be achieving some 30% on a base of 2017. That is the target we have kept. Now, the stakeholders identification, the implementing agencies has been identified for each of the 124 cities which we have identified up to the scale of 1 lakh population. We have come across based on past experience, although all these 124 cities does not have scientific data to support a scientific argument for various action plans. But there are many things which we say that no regret measures, and those were not available at those cities. We have tried to identify them in a broader sense as an action plan, identified the implementing agencies, and then we have given them targets on annual basis. We have developed a mechanism. Those mechanisms are not only per se for the planning, providing resource, enabling them the implementing issues, having synergized at the implementation stage, at the policy interventions, at the state level, at federal level. Similarly, we found that there was a lot of knowledge gap at the implementing agency. We all talk about air pollution per se in generic terms, but what exactly needs to be done on a scientific way? And what are the critical things we need to look into when we are executing various activities to take measures, countermeasures for air sources? What we did was we found a mechanism where the technical institute near to those cities, we have tied them with these cities as a knowledge partner. And to have a uniformity across these cities, we have had a institute of eminence who are much more in air quality for last 10 years, 15 years. Those are found as an advisory group, and they are giving knowledge based to these, based on hub and scope method. Like we have regional institutes who will be helping the local institutes, and then they will be parting the knowledge base requirement gaps to the ULBs, the local bodies of the cities. And similarly for pollution control board, who are the regulatory bodies across India with the various states, we have provided them also certain strengthening and monitoring mechanism, made them more responsible towards this, although they have been doing, but in a very concentrated effort. Apart from that, another part was various schemes are there in place, like Ujjwala we have. Similarly, we have change in fuel, switching over to cleaner fuel. Then you have e-vehicle, promotion of e-vehicle. So we have like mass transport, All those things we have identified, and the concerned ministries have been requested to prioritize in these cities based on the hierarchy, pollution, population and pollution strength. And we are trying to converge those efforts in those cities in a very synergized and coherent way with the objective, so that our targets are definitely, there will be a lot of things which will be long term, which may not come for smaller cities, like providing them cleaner fuel as of today. But now we know that by 2024, which cities will have cleaner fuel like pipe gases, and which are the areas where industries can be switched over. So now we are in a position, and slowly we'll get more concrete dates where we will be able to capture the things at sources. Now, having said all these things, we realize that there are two major issues. One is in situ, where the pollution are generated within the city, and there are certain which comes beyond the administrative control of the city, which we can say regional phenomena, transboundary, whichever name we talk about in scientific jugglery. But the point remains, it's an in situ and ex situ. Now, ex situ is a major challenge, which one of the study of World Bank only in IGP has suggested like 30 to 40% of such particulate matters are coming out of city, out of state, and it varies again on seasonal, and all those scientific parameters are always there. Now, those things we have to look into, and there we come, not only it is within the country, like also we have to look and cooperate with the neighbors, because when we talk about air, it doesn't have any boundary. It's more to do with the air shed which it has of similar meteorological conditions and other governing factors. Like when we talk about IGP is one, then we have in South, the challenges are different. The air quality is much better compared to IGP because the background noise is not there. And as Bidya was saying, like the COVID pandemic and the lockdown has also made us aware about where we stand in a natural condition when everything is at completely stopped. Like there was no movement for 2 months, and what was the totally natural contribution, those things we know now. So that has given us where we stand and how ambitious we should be, and what are other factors apart from the anthropological causes which needs to be looked into, like greening, developing forest area patches, having less arid and resuspension, even to the extent like groundwater and moisture content. Now, those are also contributing to the background particulate matter concentration. So it's a very complex matrix, and definitely slowly we are identifying the causes, we are prioritizing it, and even resources we have as a national policy, we have now committed resources, financial resources for executing those activities which will be target based, monitored. So some sort of incentive provisions are also there, and let us see like how better we works. We are hopeful. In last 2-3 years, we have found there has been certain improvement. Awareness is one of the factors which we are really working on it, and it's a long-term behavior aspect has to be done. So those things will be taken up slowly. Yes, we are very hopeful that things will be in a right direction as last 2-3 years has shown us, and we will be moving ahead in that direction. With this, I will stop here, and thank you for this.
Thank you very much, Sundeep. And I think that you touched on many of the points that Bjarne had already addressed at the more macro level, right? The importance of having a narrative, awareness, capacity building, a focused approach, resources, incentives, and the coordination across ministries. So it looks like you've really captured a lot of that. Congratulations for that. I'm going to go back to you, Bidya, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of the framing, sort of the macro framing around this. So you have been involved in the Mali Declaration on the control of air pollution and its transboundary effects in South Asia. It's the only intergovernmental agreement on air pollution in the region, which was signed way back in 1988. Can you tell us a bit of the experience with this? How impactful has it been, and what are the prospects going forward?
Yes, thank you, Cecile. Now, for the benefit of the participants, Mali Declaration in full form, it's with Sundeep and also Mr. Hussain must be knowing. Mali Declaration on Control of Air Pollution and its Transboundary Effect in South Asia. And here it's all of the South Asian countries, and one addition is Iran, because that time, like for the transport of air, we thought like Iran should also be included, because what air in Pakistan comes is from Iran side. So this was signed during, as you have mentioned, in 1998 during the South Asian Cooperative Environment Program's Governing Council meeting in Mali. So that's why this Mali is carrying the name. And the declaration calls for the regional cooperation among the South Asian countries to address this transboundary air impact. But when the declaration was signed, air pollution was not a very big challenge as it is now. It was back in 1998. And for Nepal also, we have just founded Environment Ministry with just a skeleton staff, like no experts at all. India was a little bit better off, but the other countries like Bhutan, Nepal, even in Pakistan, so Maldives, they were like, the Environment Ministry was very, like the staff was not, like the experts was not there. And that time, many countries did not have this air quality monitoring stations. But, within this, it almost 2 decades now, that had also made, some progress on this, capacity building and raising awareness on air quality issues. So I would say the best, thing that we all can proudly say about Mali Declaration is like, awareness raising in the countries where, when air pollution was not at all a challenge. And we did quite a lot of work, like, establishing network of air pollution monitoring stations in all these 7 countries, developing emission inventories with standard methodology within all the countries. And also we did impact assessment on human health, agriculture, and even on corrosions. So that was, was wow kind of activities that we did during those Mali Declaration time. But having said this, sadly, there was hardly any ownership by the countries. It was not strong at all. The countries didn't devise any mechanism for this to carry independently, because, the institution memory was poor. And this is due to, frequent changes in the government that has led to this. And this was clearly shown when the main donor was SIDA. When it pulled off, then it was almost dormant for 5 years. Now, with the recent approach from the Secretariat and the member countries, now we are trying to revive this declaration. And most national government, like we had a meeting, and they have agreed that, even like we will be providing some country contribution for the sustainability of the declaration. And I think India has already provided, and Nepal would like to provide, but there are some issues on the Secretariat, so they cannot transfer money. So that's why we are just, pausing. And it was wonderful to again reconnect with all the group in April 2021, and where we had convened as a working group meeting, and we shared that we need to revive this Mali Declaration again. And this is more important in the present context, because we are talking about transboundary air pollution, and then the air pollution issues is more of a now development agenda rather than just environmental issues. So all countries are having this national action plan, and now the regional cooperation is very crucial. And effective strategies, what we need to do is that these strategies now need to redefine to the present context, because the declaration was drafted in 1998, so this is not much relevant to this context. So even we need to work on the funding scenario, because the country contribution would be just nominal to run the secretariat, and further funding opportunities would be necessary to really, revitalize and this Mali declaration. And I also wanted to share a little bit on this, the different forums that ICIMOD just convened recently, that HKH Ministerial Summit, where ministers across Hindu Kush Himalayan region signed a historical significant declaration agreeing to strengthen the regional cooperation in the region, and also promote a united voice for the HKH region in global and also in the regional platforms. And this, ministerial summit has significance, and it also pertains to air quality issues, because this agreed on HKH call to actions. And for example, there's one component on 1.5 degree, and that says taking concentrated action to reduce short-lived climate pollutants, and also reducing biomass burning, and also promoting clean energy solutions. And this is for sharing that there's another upcoming platform at the regional level is Sagarmatha Samvad, which Nepal had initiated. I don't know how many of you are aware of it. This was supposed to happen last year, but again, due to COVID, it is yet to happen. And this is also the platform that intends to deliberate on the prominent issues of global, regional, and national significance, especially on the issues of climate change. And, at least these things are also happening at the regional front. So I'm really happy to also mention these two additional, initiatives that's been launched at the regional level. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Bidya. And it's very encouraging to see that indeed some of these regional platforms are being revitalized or taking on a new life. So that gives us hope. Let me go back to you, Mr. Hussain. We actually have a question from a member of our audience, Priyanka, who would like to hear more about the collaboration across the two Punjab provinces in Pakistan and India, in particular around some of the agricultural cycles and the crop burning issues, which we know are one of the sources of air pollution. But I would also add to that question some efforts that have happened across borders on the brick kiln industry. So over to you. And you'll need to unmute, Mr. Hussain.
Now, am I audible?
Yes, please proceed.
It is a known fact that both Punjab on either side of the border follow the policies of their federal and central governments. Central government in case of India, federal government in case of Pakistan. But while suffering from this common threat, common menace and common danger, we must think in terms of evolving certain interprovincial cooperations as well. Say, why not Indian Punjab and Pakistani Punjab can sit together to evolve a strategy of, to my calculation, it is a three-pronged problem. First of all, it is the presence of coal-powered thermal stations, and I am certain that none of them is operating on Pakistani Punjab side. We have no coal-powered thermal station operating in Punjab. Second is the brick kiln sectors, and third is the stubble burning of crops. Transboundary movement of air pollutants depends on the direction of trade winds. Sometimes it flows from Pakistani Punjab to Indian Punjab, and sometimes it flows the other way around. It comes from Indian Punjab to the Pakistani Punjab. I don't know what Indian Punjab authorities or Indian government authorities are doing, but I can, in my own place, enumerate the steps which Pakistan and Punjab government have taken for improvement in the current situation. Particularly, the major portion of this question pertains to brick kiln sector. I may share some statistics with you that we in Pakistani Punjab have 7,986, say 8,000 brick kilns. Now, simultaneously, conversion of all these kilns from traditional conventional BTK technology, bull trench technology, to the new and less polluting technology called zigzag technology is underway. In the reports which I have been able to gather from my relevant departments, this sector is being dealt with in Punjab by industries department of this government. And they have happily informed us that out of 7,986 brick kilns, conversion of all those kilns is under process, underway, and 25% of the task which relates to installation of air blowers for efficient consumption of fuels has been completed, and the work on the 75% of the job which relates to remodeling of stacking patterns is underway. We are aggressively tackling it, and I hope that in coming 3, 4, 5 months, we will be able to convert at least half of our brick kilns 100% to the new technology, that is zigzag technology. Similarly, crop residue burning, stubble burning is common. Practice is common between Indian Punjab farmers and Pakistani Punjab farmers. They tend to burn their stubbles, their crop residues, because that is a quick fire solution, and that at present, at least to the extent of Pakistani Punjab, it has been addressed through some scientific interventions. We have introduced two types of machines which will contribute toward tackling of this problem. One is rice straw shredders. At present, our agriculture department in Government of Punjab has distributed 143 rice straw shredders among farmers in the province, because this menace is more specific and more pronounced in 7 districts of the Punjab, which we have categorized we have placed in the red zone, that is Lahore, Kasur, Sialkot, Gujranwala, Okada, Nankana Sahib, etc. These 7 districts border, they are closer to the border with Indian Punjab, and this is the area where most of the paddy crop is sown. Government of Punjab has distributed 143 machines called rice straw shredders among the farmers, and they are using it on community basis. Similarly, Same number of machines called happy seeders has also been distributed among the farmers, and target on both sides, on both counts, is 357 machines each, 357 rice straw shredders, 357 happy seeders. This is not a very big intervention, but it is a good start. And we are educating our farmers how to use these machines and how to avoid burning their crops, because as has been said, that smoke has no boundary, pollution has no boundary. It is direction of the wind which determines which province of the two countries, Indian Punjab or Pakistani Punjab, is recipient of this smoke. Thirdly, as I have already mentioned, that we in Punjab government, we are currently implementing Punjab Green Development Program. And on all these sectors, we have allocated sizable funds for bringing in more interventions, more scientific, science-based research and science-based solutions. For agriculture department, I have mentioned the two machines. For transport sector, I have already mentioned that we have reserved 25 million US dollars for, for replacement of old vehicles and for betterment in fuel qualities. Similarly, for industries, we have reserved 30 million US dollars for, for, for two interventions. One in the brick kiln sector, as I explained, 200 million Pakistani rupees have been reserved for conversion of technology, and the remaining amount from 30 million US dollars will be spent on other interventions, including installation of electromagnetic precipitators, commonly called as scrubbers, on industries. And with these interventions, we do hope that we will be making a noticeable difference in the coming months and years.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hussain. And to our audience, I see that you've been actively posting questions. My colleague Mani's been answering many of them, and we're going to be taking a few into the conversation. So please keep on posting your questions. Sundeep, I'm going to turn to you. We're going to go from Pakistan to across the border to India. Can you tell us how your approach border collaboration, transboundary issues as part of your National Clean Air program?
Yeah, thank you, Cecile. As of today, some of the concern raised with regard to the local issues in the transboundary region, like stubble burning, and definitely power plants are one of the major source where the pollutants travel long distance. It may go up to 1,000 kilometers. So it's not a local phenomena or local consequences which has to be only accounted for, but it has its impact in its entire airshed per se. And we do experience a lot of such long distance impact, especially in some months in Delhi. And these are a lot of studies and conclusions are there. Now, looking into this long-term transportation of pollutants, we have recognized these things a bit early in 2014-15 only. And we started working on it, especially with regard to the power plants. And we came out with certain emission norms which were much stringent than what it was. And it was definitely governed by the secondary pollutant formation aspect. Like when we target the sulfur dioxide emission norms, comparatively when we, in domestic coal, we had not that a big concern of sulfur. But looking into the market dynamics and the blend of coal being used for economic purpose and whatever reason may be. So that is one aspect where definitely we are looking into at in situ, in home corrective measures, which will have impact on regional aspect. But yes, we do need certain cooperation with respect to sharing of knowledge activities, because that will give, see, by the end of the day, it is the health impact and the consequences which we are trying to reduce. And the causes are irrespective the location, geographical location of causes, since it does not have any boundary. So the early we have exchange of information and knowledge, like that will have both sides, like at the control event spot also, and at the receptor end as well. So that is one part where we look forward for sharing of knowledge, and not only limited to sharing of knowledge, there has to be some uniformity in generation of data. Like when we should know that we are comparing apple with apple. For that, definitely we had discussed in Mali forum, and we recognize that in all Mali countries, that we need to work upon a uniformity of data generation, and data exchange will make sense much more in that case only. So that is one area where we need to look into. I think these are the area where we have good potential. Like Bidya was highlighting emission inventory and all those things which we look into. There has to be some uniformity to have these data exchange and look into various models, what we do for estimation and predictions. So some protocol on having uniformity and those things. I think there are such many potentials where cooperation has to start from the core. It may not be, yes, policy level things will come definitely, but the scientific part, what we have, we should all be working on the same platform with the same language, scientific language, same methodology. I think these are the area where we can work, and with this virtual era, like this can be a good opportunity also. We can explore that. This is what we look into.
Thank you very much. And thanks for highlighting the importance of data, of consistent data, and of knowledge sharing around the region. That's very important. So I'm going to turn to Bjarne now, who has the advantage of seeing other regions. Can you share with us, Bjarne, some good examples or models of regional collaboration in other regions that could help to inspire South Asia?
I can certainly do my very best to talk about some models that have had weaknesses and strengths. I'll start from the regional level, going down to the national level, and going down to the sub-national level. And I'll not talk about the Mali Declaration because Bidya kindly touched upon that. If we look across Southeast Asia, especially, there's a few corporations that might be interesting. The transboundary Haze Agreement was quite a specific collaboration, and I think it is a useful example of countries coming together trying to address specific issues. But I think also one of the things to learn from the transboundary Haze Agreement is the need to establish common language accountability within future agreements. IANET, the Asset Deposition Network, is in an interesting development phase that for a number of years been preoccupied with monitoring asset deposition, but are now morphing into focusing on air pollution on a regional level, and focusing especially on the data side. I think that is interesting because it speaks specifically to what Sundeep was talking about, the need for harmonization of data across a region. I think it's, is potentially also interesting because they're doing the same thing in this precise point in time. So there is an exercise going on in Southeast Asia, taking an existing intergovernmental mechanism, as it is called, into creating some sort of uniformity, at least on the data side and the awareness side. In the past, I think the UNEP Clean Air Asia governmental meetings on urban air quality, which was held from 2006 to 2014, was an example of a multi-stakeholder partnership with governmental meetings every second year that did deliver a long-term vision on urban air quality, I stress urban air quality only, from Southeast Asia. In addition, producing a agreed framework for the guidance framework for better air quality on city level. So more specific agreements, but interesting that there was a well-delivered vision and there was a well-delivered framework that now forms a blueprint for implementation of clean air action plans, clean air action and climate action plans across cities in Asia. If I go a step down, I think we all have heard of and know the China Blue Sky Plan, effective back in 2013. Very strong, very, I should say, top-down approach, but based on strong political will to protect human health, key responsibility to cities and cooperation between regions, and really a focus on within China aligning science-based policy formulation and implementation. If I look on two specific airshed examples within country, I think the Beijing example often used is still a fascinating one. When starting working on the air pollution, realizing that 2/3 of the pollution comes within the city, 1/3 without the city. Task force established all the way back in 2013 between Beijing, Beijing, Hebei province, 8 representatives from ministries. It's a bit heavy setup, but it really, really worked. And Beijing setting up a specific coordination office to manage the whole airshed in these 3 regions. This group was upgraded, airshed group, leading group, was upgraded to a leading group in 2018 under the purview of the Vice Minister of the State Council, which talks a little bit to the importance that was giving to collaboration within provinces under a common airshed. And we have seen subsequent significant reduction in pollutions from these 3 provinces, including actually with World Bank support, as many of you will know. And finally, I will turn back to where we're based in the Philippines as an example of an ongoing intra-country effort on creating airsheds. The Department of Environment and National Resources, DNER, has designated 20 airsheds within the Philippines, basically taking the whole country, grouping LGUs, local governments unit together within the same airshed region, aim at implementing what they call a common action plan. Quite useful governing structure, mirrored actually on the Beijing experience with the airsheds being chaired by the DENR. So there is a governmental oversight of these meetings, and with technical working groups on technical matters, finance and communication. We're looking forward to working more with them. We're supporting them with capacity building at the moment. We do understand that working in airsheds and collaboration on this level, we see the same challenges that I mentioned before. We need to strengthen the science-based approach to emission control. But one specific challenge when working on airsheds is the lack of local research, and I mean local to the airshed, about air pollution and its impacts. We have been busy lately with supporting some of the airsheds in, for instance, developing the health impact assessments on an airshed level to galvanize the support for action. So I think there are some interesting examples across Asia. Some has been very productive, some has been less productive. But I think there is a lot of practices that can be good practices that can be used and be used to inspire South Asia in moving forward. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much for bringing those experiences in, Bjarne. That's really helpful. So we are reaching the, we're close to the end of our time together. I'm going to do take one more round of questions. I'm asked all our speakers to try to stay to 2 to 3 minutes so we can cover all of this. I'm going to start with you, Bidya. Can you share some of the innovative approaches that ICIMOD has been supporting at the regional level to tackle air pollution?
Thank you. One of the sector that we have been really successful is the brick sector. And as you know, the brick sector is a very highly influential sector in South Asia. And it is all male dominated. And it's an informal industry beyond any national frameworks and quite notorious for non-cooperation in emission reduction, intervention, and also poor operating condition. And this is why it was necessary to initiate the intervention, though the community was very, very reserved, like they wouldn't even allow you to go to their brick kilns. And we thought without having the Brick Association on board, the change was impossible. So we invested most of our time in convincing the brick owners and to have trust in us so that we could, implement anything. And, in South Asia, there are around 150,000 brick kilns all scattered over, and they emit around 120 million tons of CO2. So that's a huge amount that is putting in the atmosphere. And what we did was, after getting along with the able to convince the brick kiln, and of course the 2015 earthquake in Nepal that really played a catalyst, and ICIMOD was able to convert all the kilns in Kathmandu in the zigzag technology. That's not a very cleanest technology, I would say, but that was the closest to what they were operating, that Hussain Saab has mentioned about the fixed chimney bull trench kiln, which was really emitting high level of air pollutants. And this, why it was important for us is it's the local impact, but also it reaches to the high Himalayas, the transport, and also aids in melting the Himalayan ice and snow. That's why it was very important sector for ICIMOD as well. And ICIMOD, once we gain confidence with the Nepalese Brick Association, ICIMOD facilitate the South-South learning through establishing inter-industrial partnership, because they would, listen to their peers more than, they will listen to us. So it was like we took our brick entrepreneurs to Pakistan to convince that this zigzag is really working and it emits low than what, they have been emitting. So the changeover from traditional to the traditional kilns that used to operate to zigzag kilns, even resulted in 20 to 25% of reduction in coal consumption, because it was this energy efficiency, and around 50% of reduction in air pollutants, including black carbon, particulate matter, CO2. And we did a little bit of calculation that, okay, let's start saying that, all the South Asian, the bricks kilns in South Asia are converted to just zigzag. So, there's a huge amount of CO2 reduction. It's around 15 to 20 million tons annually. So that's a huge number, which, can also help support in countries' NDCs. So from Nepal, we started our journey to Pakistan, and this was one of the major success. When we entered Pakistan, there was no any, cleaner kilns. So it was, and within 3 years, like Hussain Saab also mentioned, that from zero to like we are able to convert more than 7,000 kilns in Punjab, and now there are other provinces like Balochistan, KPK, where we will be also like even in this COVID situation, we are also trying from the Nepalese entrepreneur side. We are giving them online support on the conversion, and not only this, like the Pakistan government also equally played a vital role because they started introducing enabling directives and also financial instrument for the conversion. So that really, speeded up the conversion. And we were already working in Nepal, India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. So what we thought, like, why not just bring all these associations together, so that this is a very volatile region and the volatile sector as well. So we were trying to bring all these associations together, and they really agreed when they had come to Kathmandu. And now there's a Federation of Asian Bricklin Association, which is in short known as FABCA. And this network has been really vibrant, especially in this pandemic. Also, they start networking with each other. They share their skills, and they also share their problems. And with cross borders, they also meet and greet, and they have these virtual conversations. So that has been a very vibrant network that this FABCA has becoming. And then as ICIMOD has China also as a member country, so what we did was we bought these Chinese entrepreneurs and more of an institution that would provide some of the solutions to the brick sector. So that also really enhanced. And in these FABCA meetings, we bring this Chinese experts so that they are able to connect with them as well. And the other sector that which we also worked is on the transport. That was
So,
on
Bidya, sorry, I'm gonna interrupt you because we are running out of time. But that's a great example on the brick kilns. It's one I've heard several times, and I think you illustrated it beautifully. Sundeep, in terms of regional cooperation, you talked a lot about sharing of data, having reliable data, and building capacity and sharing of knowledge. Do you see opportunities for sharing good practices like the one we just heard on brick kilns, or policies, aligning on policies? Where do you see that conversation going regionally?
Yeah, ultimately we need to do that because best practices will definitely, like what we do internally, like from one city to another city, what we learn. Air pollution is the solution to this is unique for every city of its own. But the best practices and the standardized one, there are certain activities which are common for everyone to do every, like carrying out studies, standard protocol, because we all more or less live with the same sort of primary data collation status. We may not be rich with those things, how to tackle those challenges, how to collate those information, what are the methods they have adopted in one city, based on that what we do. So best practices for not only using the scientific tools, but also on implementation status, monitoring aspect, data analysis. Like many a times what happens that even we have a continuous monitoring stations, it has its own challenges. And how to deal with that, how to fill up the gaps, how to treat those data, these things are to be shared. That only increases the capacity of the people dealing with it. Definitely there are other issues where some places, for India, like we have a very diversified geographical location, behavior aspect also are very different. We are very diversified at the ground level. So, and if we look at our neighbors, basically on regional cooperation part, there are very similarities on the neighboring population. So those things, the benefit we derive, like zigzag technology we were talking about. Now in India, we are definitely going ahead pan India with zigzag technology. And there are certain, what Bidya was saying, they may not be good for certain portions in Nepal or some pockets. And why it is not there, similar conditions may be there in India. So if we have a learning out of that, so we don't go and reinvent the wheel in those areas. So definitely there's a good potential for sharing of best practices and studies. Like what we do, we can share those studies with them, and that will eliminate, optimize the resource part also, because we all are crunched with the resources, and the matrix of air pollution cause and its consequences are so huge. We need to have definitely there are good potential, I will say, on that.
Great, thank you. Thank you. Yes, so the importance of sharing experience across cities, nationally, but also across borders regionally, and making sure that we're not reinventing the wheel. Mr. Hussain, similar question for you. Where do you see the opportunities for regional collaboration?
I do have with me some documents showing that in one case, Chief Minister Punjab wrote a letter to Chief Minister of the Indian Punjab and urged him to come up for some common strategies and common efforts to tackle that smog menace. But progress thereon couldn't be made because that was not interstate, that was correspondence between, unofficial correspondence between two chief ministers. But later on, there is a letter with me which shows that Ministry of Foreign Affairs Pakistan took up the matter with Indian government in a formatted and formal manner. We need to revive those efforts. It has been pointed out very aptly that strategies on air pollution should not be limited to our political and administrative considerations. They transcend boundaries, and similarly, if the problem transcends boundaries, solution to that problem should also transcend the boundaries. We are all open. We are ready to cooperate. We are ready to share our experiences in three sectors, in all the three sectors: agriculture, industry, and transport sector. Whatever data we have with us, we are ready to share it with our Indian counterparts, our counterparts from other countries as well. And we are moving toward a better data collection regime as well. And I think that our experiences and lessons learned by us in better data collection should be replicated in other parts of the region, so that if there is improvement in the quality of data collection, data generation, then there must be an improvement in the methodologies and solutions necessary for betterment in the situation. I again reassure my counterparts that we are open, and we offer that if our relevant governments permit, we can sit somewhere and we can have virtual meetings, and we can devise and we can think of evolving common strategies so that we can move toward the goal of effective control on this menace. Smog season is simultaneous in both parts of the Punjab, Indian Punjab and Pakistani Punjab. And I do believe that, like us, they also share apprehensions. They also have their own own concerns about that, we should rise above the traditional blame game scenarios. One province says that it is coming from the other part of the province, other part of the country. It is Indian Punjab says that it is coming from Pakistani Punjab, and Pakistani Punjab tends to claim that it is coming from Indian Punjab. That is not the solution. Wherever it is originated and wherever it travels, but in what direction it goes, it is common, and we have to face it. We have to tackle it in a collaborative, in a cooperative manner, and we are ready to cooperate, to collaborate for effective controls.
Thank you, Mr. Hussain. I think really hearing a lot of willingness to collaborate across borders. So, Bjarne, you've been observing this phenomenon and actively engaging. What do you see the future hold for South Asia?
Hopefully a very positive future, I would say. If I look at the trajectory in South Asia, and of course I don't have a crystal ball, I think that sort of the imminent risk that I see in South Asia and elsewhere is sort of potentially increased pollution pressure due to the growth path of the region. And we're also seeing some places sort of the post-pandemic pollution rebound. If the stimulus packages post-pandemic is not helping to, for instance, transform the energy provisions. Now, on the positive side, what I think would be fantastic to see in the region as a trajectory would be alignment around the protection of public health, so the air pollution agenda and the climate agenda, including renewable energy, building resilience. I think it's important. I think a long-term vision that includes regional cooperation, but also firm targets, would really put South Asia on the forefront of the agenda compared to many others. And by firm targets, I think it would be fantastic to see targets related, for instance, to not only complying with WHO guidelines, but also reduction of premature deaths by, for example, 2/3 by 2030. If out of this effort comes an implementable guidance framework for better air quality in the region, born out of regional collaboration, including transboundary action and cooperation, I think South Asia would be on a trajectory to lead the air quality or be one of the leaders in the air quality response across Asia. And in the same vein as Hussain, I am also very happy to offer Cleaner Asia's help in moving this forward.
Great, thank you. So that's a very positive, inspiring message for us to conclude with. So to conclude, I'm going to ask each of you in just 1 minute to tell us if there was one regional activity that you would prioritize, one regional action to alleviate air pollution, what would it be? Bidya, let's start with you. 1 minute each.
Yes, it should be integrated approaches, because it won't be successful if you are just concentrating on it. The major problem, as I said, is the crop burning, because it impacts most of, the fog issue and the haze issue. So I see a lot of potential on that. Thank you.
Sundeep.
The first thing has to be that there has to be all parties should sit together and realize it that yes, it's not my problem or his problem, it's a common problem. That is one part. And as far as the first initiative or the common one, big one, is to share the knowledge, whatever we have, because that will lead to know where we stand from each other, what are the gaps, and where we need to strengthen ourselves. Because end of the day, everyone has to move the same path. So I believe the first thing is to have a collaborative effort at place, and then sharing of whatever knowledge we have, in air pollution mitigative measures. That should be shared, exchange of knowledge, and that should be the seeding ground. And it will, over a time, it will again go ahead and take its own path as the requirements come up. That would be like my point of view.
Thank you. Mr. Hussain.
I have 3 suggestions to make, technical. I would recommend immediate resumption of the stalled implementation of Mali Declaration. Relevant governments need to be sensitized effectively. As Bidya pointed out, that having been inked in 1998, it has seen little implementation. If it is revived and resumed and implementation is ensured at governmental levels, it will make a very conspicuous difference. Secondly, remaining within our own resources, every country, neighboring country of the region should reserve and allocate sizable funds for induction of scientific mechanical interventions in agriculture sector, in the industrial sector, brick kiln sector. More funds should be pumped in, more resources should be reserved for this purpose, because if we reduce pollution, we will improve our health, and the funds currently being used on hospitals, if they are diverted to better technologies, then there will be no difference in fiscal terms, but there will be a huge difference in human terms. Action plan for pollution mitigation must be de-linked from political and administrative considerations. We must tell our relevant governments that they may have their own points of view on different issues, but the issue of pollution is common, and solution to this issue should also be common, and it should be action plans for mitigation should be de-linked from political and administrative considerations. And we need to convince our relevant governments. And on my own part, in my own place, I will be the first one to go to convince my government that let me meet with my Indian counterparts, Indian Punjab counterparts, because it has nothing to do with our political stands, with our political points of view. It has to do something with our future lives, which are far more precious than other considerations. No other consideration is going to be harmed or to be altered by this strategy, but we need to de-link our action plans from our political and administrative considerations.
Thank you, Mr. Hussain. Bjarne.
Thank you. I got 1 minute, so I'll be very brief. A regional mechanism for knowledge exchange and working on clean energy transition, co-benefits and co-control with an explicit quadruple focus: reducing air pollution, protecting public health, mitigate climate change, increase the resilience of countries post-pandemics. So these 4 intertwined elements: air pollution, protect public health, mitigate climate change, increase resilience, regional cooperation around a joint effort on this.
Thank you, Bjarne. Thank you all for leaving us with your final thoughts. And I want to thank our audience. You've been very engaged. There's been a lot of chat in our chat bar, and Mani's been responding to some of these questions. I also want to say that we've had more than 2,500 people have voted on the poll, and I will now reveal the results. So the top vote has gone for increasing renewable use, and that's been almost 60%, 58.5%, followed by fiscal incentives and bans with 20.5%. Then we have air quality monitoring at 12.4% and transboundary agreements at about 9%. So that was responding to the question on what specific policies should South Asian countries prioritize to mitigate air pollution. So I think we see some parallels with the conversation we've been having. So it would be a tall order for me to try to summarize this conversation, but let me just pull out a few threads. I think that there's been real recognition of the importance and the urgency to act, that this is threatening lives and it's threatening economic growth and the recovery post-pandemic. South Asian countries are taking this seriously, and many have policies, instruments, and measures in place to improve air quality. We've seen great advances on enhanced monitoring, robust fiscal policies with the mix of incentives and tax, new renewable energy policies, as we've spoken about, and improved measures across the board in a coordinated manner. What we know is that well-designed and targeted policy interventions can work. And fortunately, thanks to experiences in the regions, we also know what needed actions need to be taken in order to substantively improve air quality in South Asia. And Bjarne, was very generous in bringing some of that international experience in. So the core to success, as we've heard, is political will, prioritizing air quality management, coordinating efforts at the city level, at the national level, and at the regional level, and then having adequate resources, financing, and incentives. And ultimately, it all boils down to effective implementation. So what I heard in this conversation today is great willingness to cooperate at the regional level. I think you all expressed that, and that is a key takeaway certainly for us today. And I think there is an enormous opportunity for the region to improve air quality collectively. We started off this conversation talking about our shared vision to reduce air pollution to cleaner interim WHO targets by 2030. And to achieve this, we will need combined government and stakeholder approaches, and we need all South Asian nations to act together for cleaner and bluer skies. So with this, I will close our conversation today. I'd like to thank our panelists, each of you, for generously sharing your thoughts and sharing your time with us, and to thank our audience for being so engaged. And I'd like to thank my team also, who's put a tremendous amount of work into making this event happen today. So we have taped this event. It is recorded. It will be available on our World Bank Live website, as well as our One South Asia website. And we encourage all of you to keep up the conversation by using the hashtag OneSouthAsia. Continue to share your thoughts, continue to engage on this topic, and we will reconvene in 2 months for our next online conversation. Thank you all very, very much, and really congratulations to our speakers for a fantastic conversation. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.